Welcome folks, John and Roger from Matthews Buses, and we're going to take just a moment to go over some real basics on coolant system preventive maintenance and testing. Many times we've seen some premature failures, radiators, EGR coolers, turbochargers, cylinder head gaskets, and many of these items that have prematurely failed could have been prevented with a little bit of preventive maintenance. And some proper testing. And that's really what we're going to show you in this quick video clip, is 3 different ways that you can test your cooling system real quickly, real effectively, and get a good idea of where your coolant is at. First, and probably the absolute simplest, is the use of the universal 3-way test strips, which we'll have Roger demonstrate. Real quick and simple. Pull the expansion tank cap off. And you want to make sure that when you utilize these test strips, you remove them one at a time. Secure the cap back on the bottle so as though your other test strips do not become contaminated. And then place the test strip into the expansion tank, allowing it to become saturated with the coolant. And just shake that coolant off. And then actually on the bottle, there are scales that indicate and will let you know the quality of that coolant. And as part of this video, we'll have a better picture that shows clearly the different colors. And really what you're looking at is the parts per million of nitrites, or depending upon the strips that you purchase and the coolant that you're using, you're also looking at the pH factor, and that on most of those strips will indicate 7.0. Anything below that is acidic, where this type of coolant actually, as Roger has probably let many of you know in some of his classes, that it starts out acidic. So there are some differences depending upon the coolant that you're using. Another tool that's utilized with the extended life coolants is a refractometer. And the refractometer, again, we will have a page as part of the video up to show you a little clearer view of what you should expect to see through the refractometer. But you use the bulb and withdraw a little bit of fluid from your expansion tank. Take the refractometer, pull back the top of the sight glass cover, apply just a few drops to it, and then place the cover back down, and then you'll face towards some light and look through it, and what you're going to see is a scale, and that scale will let you know basically the specific gravity of that fluid and what your freeze protection is of your coolant. And it's very important, obviously, freeze protection in the northern climates as well as boil over protection again in the northern climates as well as the southern climates. And lastly, probably one of the most overlooked things and things that people just don't really consider is what happens within the cooling system, and it's a process of electrolysis. And this electrolysis can be created by a number of different things. If the coolant quality, specific gravity, and acidity changes, that will affect the electrolysis process within the coolant. Friction within the engine of that coolant passing from one dissimilar metal to the other, static electricity. There's a lot of different things that can create electrolysis within the cooling system. An overcharging alternator, a bad engine ground. And so what we're going to demonstrate is real quickly, all you need to do is to take your ground from your digital voltometer, of course turn your meter on. You're going to want to set it to the DC 20 volt range, and put your negative of your digital voltometer onto the engine ground or a solid chassis ground, and then you will put your positive terminal into the expansion tank or into the top of the radiator, depending upon how your vehicle is set up. But on the C2s here, the expansion tank is the easiest place to go. And what you're going to look at, you're going to see voltage, and if we can kind of zoom in on that voltage, you're going to see on this new bus we're seeing a scale. What you should see is anything 0.3 volts or less. And what we've got is 0.13. So this is more than acceptable. Certainly will not create any issues, and everything is operating as indicated. If you believe, if you've got a high reading, something that is 0.3 volts or above, and maybe you've recently flushed the cooling system out, you want to obviously check all engine and chassis grounds, and then what you can do with the engine cold is then start the vehicle up, turning off all accessories. You want to first test the voltage at the batteries and verify charging. You should see, what, Roger, 13.7 to maybe 14.4, 14.5, somewhere in that range would be acceptable if the batteries are in good state of charge when they're recharging. And then do the same test that we just did with the negative on a good ground, either engine or chassis, and put the positive back into the overflow and see if your voltage has changed. And that'll be two quick ways to just verify, if you've got an issue with charging that is affecting the coolant itself. And that is about it. Those are some real quick basic tips and things to look at to keep your cooling system in tip-top shape. And we'll be back with more informational videos here in the future. Thanks.